What is going on, golf fans, and welcome back to another episode of Fairways and Dreams. I'm your host, Jeff Hartman, on this Tuesday podcast where I talk about anything in the game of golf that I want to discuss. And today, it kind of ties in with the latest news. It's all about LIV Golf, the news that happened at the end of last week. LIV Golf could be teetering on extinction. Maybe it isn't. If it disappeared, would anyone miss it? That's a question we're going to answer on today's podcast. And we are going to talk about the latest news in the game of golf. Make sure you check out all of our podcasts here on the Fairways and Dreams, whether you're watching on YouTube or whether you're listening on audio, wherever you get your podcast by searching Fairways and symbol Dreams. We'll have the press podcast coming up with the Zurich Classic. This is the two-man team event coming up down in New Orleans. Hopeful to have a third podcast for you this week. We'll have some type of podcast for you for Thursday. I'm hoping to have our April golf mixtape this upcoming week with my buddy Dan from Leave the Pin, so stay tuned for all that. But let's get started with this LIV Golf. If LIV Golf disappeared, would anyone miss it? LIV Golf is in the news for all the wrong reasons right now. And in case you missed it and didn't know, they played down in Mexico this past weekend. And there was actual rumors and news circulating that they might pull the plug on the operation before these players even teed off in Mexico. And everyone that then came out and said, that's fake. That's not true. There's been multiple sources, multiple reports that state that while they were in Mexico, there were players and agents who were not aware of what was going to be happening and what was going on. So what was going on? That's a good question. What we know right now is that the PIF, which is the Saudi-backed, the funding of the LIV Golf League, they had reportedly they were saying, we'll fund you till 2030. So they still had 4 more years after this season of funding from this equity group. Now, the PIF then, they basically said, look, we're going to continue to fund you through 2026, but we're pulling the plug on this operation afterwards. They were losing a lot of money every single year. They're paying these golfers ridiculous sums of money. They're not seeing the revenue coming back from this investment. And so in this regard, they were basically told, you have the rest of this season. You can either fold now or continue for the rest of the season, and then you get to make up your own mind. What do? Do you merge with something like the DP World Tour? Do you continue to find outside sources to fund the project? But we're done. They did use the Iran conflict right now going on as a reason for them reestablishing and rearranging some of their funding processes, but still, they are funded through 2026. But it's after that, the PIF is done. They're done with LIV Golf. So LIV Golf has done a decent job getting some funding outside of the PIF. They do have a TV deal, I think, with Fox Sports and FS2. I've never watched a second of it, but I know it's there. And they could maybe find some other outside partners to come in and help to pick up some of the slack that was left when the PIF decided they were going to back out. But again, this all came in a New York meeting. I think it was either Thursday or Friday of last week. And what do you know? These players that are in Mexico weren't even sure if they were going to tee off and play in this tournament. The tournament in and of itself did happen. Bryson DeChambeau was noticeably frustrated and upset with the conditions of the course, the bunkers, the greens, you name it. Seems visibly frustrated. But the one thing that I can't get over, and this is, let's just assume that LIV is going to continue and that they're going to find funding outside of whatever they need. And so let's say LIV Golf just stopped. Maybe they say, we're going to cease operation. All of our golfers are going to go into the DP World Tour rankings where they can then qualify for events. If they want to return to the PGA Tour, that's up to the PGA Tour with how they want to allow them to come back, all that stuff. Whatever the case is, what was sold by LIV Golf to the golf masses, we're talking about people like you and me that are watching and listening to this podcast that watch golf every single week, that follow the game professionally, what they sold didn't work. They said, we're going to do teams. And these are not just teams, they're franchises. And they're franchises that we could eventually sell. They're going to have their own values, their own evaluations, and people could then almost invest into a team like the High Flyers, captained by Phil Mickelson, or the Fireballs, which is captained by Sergio Garcia. That didn't work. It didn't work. They got players to leave the PGA Tour, some big names. We'll talk about that in a second. But a lot of them were fading members of the PGA Tour. I mentioned Sergio Garcia, Paul Casey, Lee Westwood, and yeah, it's just one of those things that John Rahm is the captain of a team. Give him his props. Ian Poulter is the captain of a team. I don't know. It's just not moving the needle, the team stuff. It isn't. They've had some good stories. Anthony Kim's a good story, but that's only a story. That's not something you build your entire league around. They said 54 holes. LIV Golf. LIV, the Roman numerals LIV stand for 54. We're only going to play 3 rounds of golf. It's going to be very similar to the Senior Tour, the Champions Tour on the PGA side of things. Hey, we're going to come and they're going to be able to play 54 holes. It's going to be different. And we're going to do a shotgun start. Oh, how about that? Really quick, people learned, like, okay, they didn't get official world golf rankings immediately because they're saying the official world golf rankings entity, why would we fund this? And why would we be okay with you all giving you points for this? You're not playing 72 holes. It's a different format, the shotgun start. They made a lot of changes. They're now playing 72 holes, which shows that the 54-hole plan, which the entire league was named after, has been abandoned. Didn't work. They said, well, don't worry. We're going to have a more relaxed environment. The guys can wear shorts. Who cares? Who gives a crap if these guys are wearing pants or shorts? I don't. I would rather see just good golf. If the guy's wearing shorts and I can see his calves, so be it. If he's wearing pants and whatever, doesn't matter. They decided to put music on the golf course. We're going to have music blaring and it's going to be so electric and all this stuff. And they've had their moments. They've had some hole-in-ones on holes that are almost like a stadium hole. You know, we're talking about out in Phoenix at the TPC Scottsdale, which always houses the Waste Management, the Phoenix Open. And those moments, those are singular moments that are electric. But other than that, this golf league is just dull. It's not bringing anything. And if there's no juice, then what are we selling to the public? And what are the investors getting in return? The answer is not much. They had all these big name players that were going to come over. Dustin Johnson, his game is completely fizzled. No one cares. And Thomas Detry comes over. Okay, doesn't move the needle. Martin Keimer, no, I don't think so. Bryson DeChambeau is one of the outliers. Charles Howell III, it's just not. It's not doing it. They got some young players to come over, some rookies and players that left college instead of going to the tour. They decided to take the money. I don't blame them, but you still have to wonder. You know, they have like Team Korea with Byung-Hun An. That's his captain. They're not drawing people. John Rahm, another outlier. Tyrell Hatton's an outlier. It's just, you got Bubba Watson. Really? Bubba Watson is someone that's supposed to drive me to watching LIV Golf. Cameron Smith hasn't done jack squat since he left the PGA Tour. Every time he comes back and he plays in a major, he's either struggling on the weekend or doesn't even make it there. It's evident that Cam Smith is the perfect guy to say, look, and he's the captain of the Ripper Club. He got his money and I'm done. I'm not going to do that. I'm just done. You know, Mark Leishman's on that same team. Taylor Gooch, I mean, he made some controversial comments when he first went over to LIV Golf saying how it's so much better. You know, Graham McDowell's on the Smash team. I'll tell you who I like the most, Harold Varner III. Why? When he left for LIV, he said, I'm doing it because it's guaranteed money. It's going to help my family. He was at least honest. That's all I'm going to say about that. You know, you got the Southern Guard with Louis Oosthuizen, Charles Schwartzel. You got Torque with Joaquin Neiman. Are any of these players that we're talking about here, is anyone saying outside of Rahm, Hatton, and DeChambeau, gosh, I wish they were back on the PGA Tour. I mean, really, the big names fizzled. And to be honest with you, when LIV Golf started, when Greg Norman was that rogue entity and he was ready to just tear it all up, they had the PGA Tour on the ropes. They had really good players. You could throw in Brooks Koepka, Patrick Reed. They were all leaving because they were getting the money and they were saying, you know what? We're sick of the way the PGA Tour operates. They're not giving us enough. There's no equity in this project. And they had the PGA Tour on the ropes. And I don't know if when this project started, I'm talking about LIV Golf, if they ever thought that the PGA Tour would adjust the way that they did. But the PGA Tour did adjust, and they gave the players more money, and they have signature events, and it's elevated payouts, and they have equity within the PGA Tour and how the tour does. They adjusted, and now you have players that have turned down the opportunity to go to LIV and the guaranteed money because of what the future of the PGA Tour looks like compared to what the future looks like for LIV Golf. And so, who are the players that you would want back is my question. Let's say that LIV Golf disappeared. And it's not a matter of would anyone miss it at this juncture. It's who would you want back on the PGA Tour? So we all would all say that John Rahm would be welcome back in some capacity. Bryson DeChambeau, for as weird and as quirky as he is, he would be wanted back as well. And I'm going to throw a third player out there. I'm going to say Tyrell Hatton. Tyrell Hatton, who had a great finish at the Masters. He's a great competitor. You see him in the Ryder Cup. He's fiery. You would want him on the PGA Tour again. You would, absolutely. But other than those three, who? Dustin Johnson? Nah, not really. Joaquin Neiman? Maybe. Maybe he's a fourth that I'm putting up there as that maybe could come back or come onto the PGA Tour. Cam Smith? No, I already talked about him. No, I just am not interested in having him back. And so you say, why should anyone care if LIV Golf just disappears? Why would anyone care? There are people that love it. I'm not going to pretend like there's like no one out there cares. There are people that care. There's people that like that it's different. There's people that like that they ruffled feathers with the PGA Tour. Sure, they are the minority. When you look at things like television ratings, which shockingly are not put out by LIV Golf anymore because they are not good. Whether you talk about, I mean, you have like in Mexico, they're trying to do the global thing. I just don't see how it's going to last. I really don't. And so I don't think LIV Golf is going to go away anytime soon. They could fold up shop and say, you know what? We're done. We're done at the end of this year. Golfers, again, we're going to funnel into the DP World Tour. A lot of their constituents are of European and or international descent. So you all are going to be funneled into the DP World Tour. Then the PGA Tour would have to assess things and say, if you would want to come back to the PGA Tour, you're going to have to go through the process. You're going to have to be suspended for so many months, year. I don't know. Like Patrick Reed is going to have to, he had to wait an entire calendar year since his last LIV Golf event. He won't be able to play on the PGA Tour outside of majors until I think August. So Patrick Reed is serving his time. He's doing his penance, so to speak. Will they make them go through the Korn Ferry Tour to requalify for their card? That's going to be interesting. Whatever it is, I'm not sure that it's just going to go away like that. I don't think LIV Golf is just going to go away, but I always go back to the question, which is the title of this podcast. Would anyone miss it? I can't think of anyone. I've talked to people. I've interviewed a ton of people on my podcast, communicated with so many different people in the game of golf. And never once have I heard anyone say, man, I just can't get enough of LIV Golf. I love it. I love it. I've got myself a Range Goats hat from Bubba Watson. Like, I've never heard anyone say that. I know there's a lot of bots on Twitter and X, and they love to talk about that stuff. But for me, I just can't. I don't think anyone would miss it. I actually welcome it folding. I welcome the LIV Golf saying we're not going to find funding to be able to pay all these golfers. We're not going to find funding to be able to operate anymore. And we're just going to transition to something new. I think that there's so many opportunities for the worldwide international type things. Where they go, they play in Australia, they play in Mexico. I think there's an opportunity out there. And if I'm the PGA Tour, if I'm Brian Roloff, I'm saying, okay, I don't care about your team stuff. You all get rid of that. But I do like your premise of traveling around. And if they were to do some type of international series, that would be fun. It's not about LIV Golf, but just taking that part of it, I think there could be a lot of quality growth within the PGA Tour if the tour were to say, we want to start doing kind of what you're doing, where we're traveling, again, Mexico, Australia, Asia. The PGA Tour goes and does the Zozo Championship. That's in Asia. But do more of that. Take that and duplicate it and just have success with it, unlike what LIV Golf does. So I know that's maybe it's old news to some people, but there's a lot of layers to this LIV Golf thing, and it's not going away anytime soon. We're going to keep you up to date here on the Fairways and Dreams podcast. But I do want to go back and let's talk about some of the latest news. We will be talking about Matt Fitzpatrick. I wanted to go over some stuff from the Masters because really what happens, the Masters ends and people are still digesting everything. And there are some really cool things to go over that maybe would have been missed. Last week on Tuesday, I did my 18 thoughts on the Masters. those are knee-jerk reactions almost. Yes, some of the thoughts come from Thursday or Friday, but those are really just my thoughts at that time. And so Chris Powers, who writes for Golf Digest, I think it's Golf Digest. Yes, it is. He's a senior writer at Golf Digest. He said pretty cool stuff from Rory McIlroy's shot on number 12. You remember on number 12 Sunday, he stuck a wedge. I think it might have been a sawed off 9-iron, so to speak. And I think he stuck it to within 10. It was like within 7 or 8 feet. Incredible shot. But I guess he or someone asked about what exactly happened. And Rory's answer is pretty interesting. Here's what he said. It was in on the left, talking about the wind. That's where the wind was. He said, I waited. This is going back to one of my first ever practice rounds here. I played a practice round with Tom Watson in 2009. And he said to me on the 12th tee, he always waited until he felt where the wind should be. And then he just hit it. Just hit it as soon as you can. That's what I did on 12. It was all over the place. When I stood up on the tee, it felt like it was off the right. And I looked at the 11th flag. It was blowing right to left. But I was patient and I waited to feel where the wind should have been coming from. And I knew it was just a perfect 3/4 9-iron. I aimed it at the middle of the bunker. Probably didn't anticipate it to drift as far right as it did. That's why you give yourself a little bit of a margin for error. That was a really good golf shot at the right time, and probably a golf shot I wouldn't have been able to hit yesterday if I didn't go to the range and try to figure a few things out and try to neutralize the ball flight a little bit. Absolutely huge shot in the tournament. Really awesome quote there. And I'm not a Rory fan, but an awesome quote saying that he went back to 2009 with Tom Watson, a practice round they played together, and he still was able to, in 2026, go back to that thought process, regurgitate that mentally, and then execute the shot. Really awesome stuff. Also, the final round rating numbers are in for the Masters. CBS says the final round of the Masters was its most watched in 11 years with 13.995 million viewers. That's Nelson Big Data plus panel at data. Last year averaged 12.99 million with no big data added. Sunday's peak was at 20.049 million people watching, the largest since 2013. That is insane numbers. Insane. A peak golf event at 20 million people watching. Phenomenal. People that say that golf is dying, I completely disagree. Talked about it on last Thursday's two-man scramble with Pez. Golf gambling is one of the most popular and quickly growing aspects of sports gambling. Don't tell me that golf is dying when you had a peak of 20 million people watching the Masters tournament, the most since 2013. Just a quick little note on Scotty, considering the major. Scotty Scheffler has now finished either first or second in 7 of the last 17 men's major championships. That is pretty remarkable. If you're thinking about those Masters ratings on Sunday, let's go back and take a look at some of the years. So in 2019, that's Tiger. Okay, so Tiger wins in 2019. They had, this is just the Sunday ratings, 10.81 million. That's pretty good. But then it dies off in 2020. That was in November. That's 9.45. 2021, they're back in the spring, 9.45 million. 2022 is at 10 million. 2023, 12.06. That was Scotty. 2024, John Rahm wins it, 9.5 million. 2025, Rory's first gold jacket, wins the career Grand Slam, 12.7. And he does it again in 2026 with Scotty making a run late. There was some high drama going on. In 2026, 14 million viewers. Again, it's amazing stuff. Absolutely love it. Great stuff. I do want to mention, obviously, in case you didn't miss the signature event this past week in the RBC Heritage at Hilton Head, and Matt Fitzpatrick outduels Scotty Scheffler at the RBC in a playoff. And if you didn't watch it, you missed some. Again, I talk about high drama at Harbortown Golf Links. It was intense. I mean, at one point, Matt Fitzpatrick held a 3 or 4 shot lead over the field. Here comes Scotty Scheffler, as he always does. And on 18, it was tremendous to see Scotty. It was funny. They're playing together. They're in the final pairing. On 18 in regulation, Matt Fitzpatrick goes a little too far right. He's in a bunker, a waste area. He hits it on the right side, misses the green. Scotty does the same thing. Scotty chips up for a tap in par. Fitzpatrick leaves it short. He does that left hand low, cross hand. I'm sorry, right? Yeah, left hand low, cross hand chipping style. He bogeys. We go to a playoff. What a shot by Fitzpatrick, though. When he has a huge drive, he hits a 4-iron. If you listen to him talk after the round, he said that he didn't even have a 4-iron in his bag for the first 2 rounds of the tournament, but the yardage worked out perfectly, the wind, and he admitted that they were aiming at the right side of the green. There was a TV tower. That was their target line, and he pulled it. Well, he pulled it right at the pin, and he sticks it within about 6 feet. Scotty misses well short and right. He chips up. It was a phenomenal pitch shot. He would have probably had a par, but Fitzpatrick drains the birdie, wins in the first hole of the playoff. So Matt Fitzpatrick wins the signature event at the RBC Heritage, and Scotty is still stuck on 1 win so far this year where he's won the American Express, and that's it. And so we will be talking about our picks. Did we have a winner? We did have a winner. It was not a great week for us, but we do continue our streak. We'll be talking about that tomorrow, the press podcast, as well as getting you ready for the Zurich Classic coming up this weekend down in New Orleans, a team event. This is always interesting. This is always so difficult to try and pick winners because a lot of the big name players are not playing. And so it's going to be real interesting to see how that works out. But we'll have that for you tomorrow on the press podcast. But that does it for me. You know how we finish these out. Be safe, be kind, and God bless. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Take it easy.